各位区块链生态的朋友们，大家晚上好啊！很高兴又和大家相聚在 Twitter Space， 也非常欢迎大家参与 EOS 网络基金会举办的这个 Antelope 品牌重塑中文社区发布会活动。我是今晚活动的主持人，也是大家的双语翻译，叫 Daisy。今天呢，我也是怀着非常激动的心情，和 EOS 生态一起来见证 Antelope 这个有里程碑意义的重大事件。那活动开始之前，我想先跟大家介绍一下本次活动的背景哈。在这之前，今年1月的时候 ，EOS、Telos、Wax 还有 UX Network 这4个基于 EOS-IO 协议的区块链组成了 EOS-IO 加这样一个联盟，并且重点负责 EOS-IO 2.0 代码库的维护更新以及品牌重塑工作。在联盟的这个非常持续高效的协同之下， EOS-IO 区块链协议正式更名为 Antelope， 并且也公开了 GitHub 储存库和网站。 Antelope 的出现就使得生态一改往日 Block One 时期那种停滞不前的消极面貌，是 EOS 独立发展的重要标志。作为一个开放框架， Antelope 将服务开发者，帮助构建下一代去中心化应用，推动建设更美好的 Web3 时代。那在今晚是一个非常重要的时刻，我们也非常有幸的邀请到了 EOS 网络基金会的 CEO Yves Rose 以及来自 Telos Network 的 Douglas Horn 2位嘉宾，来为大家带来精彩的分享。那我们先有请2位嘉宾跟大家打个招呼。So tonight we are very delighted to have invited Yves Rose, CEO of EOS Network Foundation, and Douglas Horn, architect of Telos. Let's say hi to them. Hi, Yves. Nice to meet you again. For friends who don't know you, a few words about yourself, please.
Yes, and thank you very much for that introduction, Daisy. Yes, my name is Yves Rose. I am the CEO and Executive Director of the EOS Network Foundation. I've been in the blockchain space now for roughly 11 years or so, but more so full-time for the last 5 years. I started off as a block producer on the EOS network, among other networks. And last year, I launched the EOS Network Foundation. We just turned 1 year old. And in this last year, we really took stewardship of the EOS network, and we really turned things around, started making partnerships and alliances, and essentially this is what led to the creation of Antelope. A few weeks back, that brand was revealed, and that's what we'll be talking about today.
OK， 这是 Yves Rose， 是 ENF， 也就是 EOS 网络基金会的 CEO。他在这样一个区块链行业已经待了大概有11年了，过去5年是全职在区块链行业，也是最开始是一个 BP 区块链生产者，不仅是在 EOS 网络，也在其他的区块链网络作为 BP。去年的时候建立了 EOS 网络基金会，现在到今年 EOS 网络基金会刚刚1岁1周年。去年的时候，也在这整整1年间 ，EOS 网络基金会带领 EOS 网络不断向前推进，结盟、交友、组成联盟，这也就是有了今天的 Antelope 的诞生。在过去几个星期 ，Antelope 的这样一个品牌刚刚发布。Okay, hi Douglas. Thank you for joining us with the Chinese community. You are the architect and white paper author of Telos and the leader of the Telos core developers. It's great to have you. Could you very briefly talk about yourself?
Thank you, Daisy. I'm very happy to be here. That was a great introduction. Like Yves, I actually worked on the EOS mainnet launch group many years ago. Shortly after that time, there were some of the priorities that I had hoped to see in EOS were not brought to fruition by Block One, as it had been promised in the EOS white paper. And out of that, I started the Telos blockchain and found other people who wanted to find those same features like governance and various other features that we wanted to build. So Telos has been launched the mainnet almost 4 years ago now, and we've been working on sort of a parallel path with EOS and Yves, although we have some differences, but we also have now more and more areas of similarity and cooperation. And after Yves launched the effort to create the coalition, which became Antelope, I was able to join and hopefully made some positive contributions there. And ultimately, Telos was the first to join EOS in creating Antelope, and then Wax and US followed, and UX Network followed later. And it's just been a great example of how, in truth, it is the users and developers of these blockchains that are truly in power, and we can overcome problems that we see with founders like Block One who don't fulfill their promises, but the community can take that over. And it's an amazing statement. And I'm very happy to be part of this movement.
OK， 那非常感谢，我的名字叫 Douglas， 和 Yves 一样，我在几年前也是参加了 EOS 主网的发布工作，但是在这之后，因为在 Block One 的领导下，有很多承诺没有兑现，很多 EOS 本来应该优先发展的一些事项并没有完成，在白皮书上做出的承诺也没有最终付诸实践，所以后来我就离开 EOS 去到开创了 Telos。在上面也实现了很多原本想建设的功能，比如说治理啊等等一系列，在上面构建一系列的功能。那所以Telos 主网发布大概是在4年前，接下来就是和 Yves 这边的 EOS 一起并行发展，我们有一些相似之处，但也有一些不同，不过也在不断的寻求合作。在 Yves在之前创立，现在成为 Antelope 的这个联盟的时候，我也加入了这样一个组织，这样一个联盟，也但愿在其中做出了比较积极的贡献。Telos 后来成为了现在我们今天说的 Antelope 之后 ，Telos 是最早加入的，之后又来了 Wax 和 UX Network，我们在不断的探索和发展，所以这也是一个很好的例子，来证明是用户和开发者得到了充分的赋权，来共同解决问题，这样才能解决一些之前 Block One 虽然承诺但并没有兑现的问题。真正赋权于社区，我也非常激动能参与到这一进程中。Thank you. And now I'm going to brief everyone on the giveaways and lucky draws in today's event. 好，那我们再次欢迎两位的到来。在正式环节开始之前呢，我要重点提醒大家，今晚的活动啊，我们为大家准备了非常多的福利和惊喜。首先是在此前的预热阶段，我们有号召大家关注、转发推文活动，并且留言您的问题。那今晚我们两位嘉宾将从大家的这么多留言中抽取6个问题进行回答，每一个被抽中的幸运儿会获得20 EOS 的奖励。你的问题会不会被抽中呢？接下来我们就知道啦。另外一个就是今天所有进入我们 Space 空间的小伙伴都可以参与抽奖，可以截图，把参会的截图界面发在 Space 推文下方留言，并且附上这个截图。我们就会从中抽取1名幸运儿，赠送 EOS 网络基金会1周年限定的飞盘周边。大家可以看一下我们置顶的这个推文，在下方留言附上参会截图，就可以参加抽奖领飞盘周边哦。OK， 那我们这次活动嘉宾也非常重量级，会有非常干货内容的演讲，也有非常丰富的福利，保证让参加本次活动的小伙伴们不虚此行。好了，那我们话不多说，首先要有请来自 EOS 网络基金会的 CEO Yves 来为大家带来精彩分享，带领我们更深入的了解一下 Antelope 背后的故事，以及它对生态而言更加深远的意义。同时我们也将我会给大家带来实时的翻译，把 Yves 分享的精彩内容翻译成中文。我们先来有请 Yves。All right, before we jump into community questions, I'd like to give the floor to our guests to talk about it. The stories behind, the thoughts behind Antelope, anything they'd like to share. Let's start with Yves. Passing the mic to you.
All right, thank you, Daisy. So like Douglas mentioned earlier, Antelope really started off with a dream. It really started off with 4 different chains that decided to get together and really take ownership of the core protocol that we all shared. We started off as very much as competitors that had very little anyways worked together, but we started exploring where we had overlap, where we had commonalities, and we started expanding on that. And throughout that process of determining what we would be working on, what the coalition would be responsible for, very quickly we realized that surrounding all of this, a brand was needed, something that we could call our own, something that we could take ownership of, something that would really be ours from the get-go. And that's when the process of rebranding and ultimately leading to Antelope began.
OK， 谢谢。就像刚才 Douglas 讲的，我们最开始 Antelope 其实只是一个梦想，一开始就只是4条不同的链在一起，想要为我们共享的这个主要核心协议来做点什么事儿。最开始这4条链其实是竞争者的关系，在一开始我们之间的交集其实是比较少的，很少有可以互相合作的领域。但慢慢的我们开始思考，到底我们之间会不会有交集，我们有什么共同点，有什么共同利益。慢慢的这样的讨论逐步扩展，在这个过程中我们会思考我们能做一些什么，能为什么负责。那越思考就越觉得我们确实是需要一个品牌，一个自己能够说了算的，自己能够负责的，真正属于我们自己的品牌，所以就带来了这样一个品牌重塑，最后引导我们走向了 Antelope。
And over the last 9 months with the coalition, what has happened is that we've come to common grounds, or we've reached common grounds on something that never had occurred in the past in the Antelope ecosystem, what was previously EOS IO ecosystem. It was a common understanding of where we were, but more importantly, where we wanted to go and what essentially brought us here in the first place, and how we'd be able to take over and essentially guide that product stack and everything alongside it, so that we could bring Antelope back into top position in terms of speed, performance, reliability, transparency, openness, sustainability, and growth that essentially brought us all together at some point in the first place 4 years ago.
那到去年9月份的时候，我们这个联盟就开始在寻找彼此的共同点，建立共识，而且这些共识是在过去整个 Antelope 的生态社区，之前是 EOS IO 的生态社区，之前是从未见过的。我们开始思考过去是什么样，未来会是什么样，开始在想怎么样能在接手这个产品的同时把它做大做强，未来怎么样发展这个产品，真正使得 Antelope 成为顶尖的品牌，不管是在速度还是开放性、透明度、稳定度、成长性以及性能等等各方面达到4年前主网刚刚发布的水准。
And with partners like Douglas, like those at UX and at WAX, essentially we have now a clear roadmap that ensures the sustainability and the growth of our common base, Antelope. We have now a clear roadmap that'll ensure that we remain not only competitive, but leading and pioneering in this space. And really what that does is it ensures that our respective communities are at the helm. They're at the lead of the pack in the blockchain space. And that's really what gets me excited about Antelope and the coalition, is that we are in control now. We are dictating our own destiny alongside really great partners.
那正像有了 Douglas 他们 Telos 还有 UX 以及 WAX 的加入之后，我们制定了一个非常清晰的路线图，来保证 Antelope 的持续稳定发展，以及它有一个非常清晰的规划，使得我们4个不仅仅是竞争的关系，现在更是一个领先和不断开拓创新先驱的精神。更重要的是，我们想保证社区在这个过程中是占据主导和领先地位的，让在整个区块链的发展，那这也让我非常的激动，让 Antelope 这样一个联盟，有了 Antelope， 我们这联盟真正可以自己决定自己的命运，自主带领整个产品和以及社区引领共同向前发展。OK， 接下来就我们把话筒来交给来自Telos Network 的 Douglas Horn， 他作为 Antelope 联盟的一员 ，Antelope 诞生的背后到底有什么鲜为人知的故事？从技术层面考虑，它又有什么样的优势呢？同样，我们也会实时的把 Douglas Horn 分享的内容翻译成中文。那接下来我们欢迎 Douglas Horn 来带来他的精彩分享。Now, if you really want to hear anything about Antelope, you're gonna hear it from a member from the coalition, and that's why Douglas is here with us. The floor is yours, Douglas.
Thank you very much. There are many things that I would love to talk about. This is a very broad topic, and I think that we could have 3 or 4 of these and still not reach the not reach the end of everything that was exciting and to talk about. But I'd like to start by looking at the world of blockchain right now, which is not where it was 4 years ago when the EOSIO Antelope, now called Antelope, was first brought into existence. That was a time of individual chains. There was even a belief that something could be an Ethereum killer. And what we see today, which I think is more realistic, is that blockchains that are able to interoperate with one another are really where the great value is going to be created. And when you look at something like Polkadot or Cosmos or those types of blockchains, you see really an interoperating ecosystem. And if the Antelope chains want to compete in that future reality, then we also need to be our own interactive, interoperable ecosystem. And the good news is what we're setting up, the technological advances that we've already contracted for and are already underway, are going to set us up not only as a competitor, but as actually the strongest ecosystem of interoperable blockchains.
OK， 那这个话题其实非常有的聊，它是一个很广泛的话题，有很多事情都想跟大家讲，根本讲不完的。那在最开头，希望跟大家简单说一说，如果我们观察现在的区块链世界会是怎么样的呢？其实现在区块链世界和4年前 EOS， 也就是现在的 Antelope 刚刚创立之初是非常不一样的。当时是一个单独的链，被人们誉为以太坊杀手。但是在今天，其实今天也更加现实。现在所能带来好价值的区块链，必须是一个非常酷操作性很强的系统。比如说，我们看 Polkadot， 看 Cosmos， 它都是一个可以互操作的系统。那 Antelope 的未来，如果想要继续持续的向好发展，我们也需要建立这样一个非常强互操作性的系统。那好消息是我们拥有足够的技术优势，我们也拥有相关的协议，并且我们也正在路上，正在建立这个强的互操作性系统。将来我们不仅仅要是成为一个很强力的有竞争力的组织，同样也是要赋能成为一个真正很强的具有互操作系统的组织。Okay.
So the next thing I'd say is that there are many people in our various communities that are somewhat confused about where we stand in terms of cooperation versus competition amongst the various chains and within the coalition, and those chains that have not joined the coalition yet, but will still be using our software. So I think this is important to address because it's exciting and it is new, but the mindset that we had previously was very ingrained. And I think that we need to open our eyes and see that there's a much bigger world and much more opportunity here. So in the past, of course, EOS and Telos and Wax and, and Bitcoin and Ethereum and Litecoin and Doge and everything, they all were in competition to one another. And they still are, but there is also cooperation that goes on. And in the most basic ways, we'll see that Antelope chains together have a combined identity that is fighting for apps and developers and users from Cosmos and Ethereum and Solana and all these others. And so the strength of being able to combine our relative advantages far outweighs need to compete directly. Now, we will always compete because competition actually is how you breed strength, right? I see EOS doing something amazing. And while I'm happy for that, I also want to see Telos provide maybe not the exact same thing, but something else that really drives users to come and use Telos. And Wax and UX are the same, and as are other Antelope chains that aren't part of the coalition, like Ultra and others. So we do compete. It's a strength. If we didn't compete, we would get complacent and our technology would lag. So this is good, but we also have to remember that, as they say, a rising tide lifts all boats. And we have an opportunity here to create a great increase in the capacity and ecosystem size and engagement for all of Antelope. And I believe that will lift all of our chains in value, in usability, in number of deployed apps and daily users, and in a way that, yes, we may compete a bit on who is where, but the most important thing is that it unlocks this ability for us to work together to really thrive as a herd of Antelope chains.
就有很多人不管来自什么社区，往往会有一些困惑，就是这几个不同链之间到底是合作关系还是竞争关系。有许许多多的区块链，他们不管是在联盟内也好，还是不在联盟内，没有加入联盟却在用我们的软件也好等等，到底是一个什么样的关系呢？要讲清这一点非常重要，因为我们现在在做的事情非常激动人心，是全新的，所以有一些过去的心态可能会不太适用。只要我们张大眼睛，就会看到世界之大，机会之多，是超出我们想象的。在过去，不管是 EOS 还是 Telos 还是 UX、Wax 或者是以太坊，都是从某种程度上竞争的一个关系。现在虽然也是在竞争，没错，但是我们也越来越多的进行合作，更多的是一个合作的机会。那最基础来讲，像 Antelope 所包含的区块链，彼此之间都非常希望能互相带来各自的用户啊，各自的去中心化应用啊等等，包括 Cosmos 或者 Solana 或者以太坊，都希望能把彼此的优势相互结合，而这种把优势相互结合的需求远远大于竞争带来的为我们带来的东西。所以要想持续发展，我们确实是会继续保持竞争，因为竞争会让人们的竞争力或者实力增强。对于 EOS 来说，我们希望 EOS 保持非常好、非常良好的发展，它发展的很好，我们当然非常开心。但是作为 Telos 的一员，我也非常希望 Telos 也拥有这样非常好、非常繁荣的进展。那其他的联盟内的像 Wax、US 或者Ultra 这样要进入我们联盟的也都是一样的心态。竞争当然有它的优点，但是除了竞争之外，我们也会看到更多的可以合作共创的机会。比如可以通过合作来带来更大的兼容性、更大的社区规模，通过 Antelope 的种种合作，能够让我们看到更多的价值，让我们不断提升用户的可用性，以及再来更多的 更多的每日用户、更多的应用等等。所以竞争是会有的，但是更重要的是我们通过合作来解锁不同的机会，来解锁更多的机会，让未来这一大群 Antelope 这一大群羚羊带来更多的繁荣。谢谢 Thank you.
And finally, I'd say that this is the time to look forward. We've gone through all of our group has gone through a challenging time when we were not supported by people who promised they would. Out of that, however, we have taken ownership of our own situation. We are not beholden to anyone else. We are not waiting for anyone else. And we have already created new that are going to make this group not only the fastest, highest capacity, easiest interoperation, fastest finality, and then based on the individual chains, other fantastic features. For example, Telos will be focusing on finally creating the high level of ease of use for all users that a typical non-blockchain app would have. And I expect that EOS and WAX and UX will also be following along these or similar lines that greatly improve mass adoption. So I think what you see is an ecosystem here that has been so depressed in price for so long, and I rarely speak about price, but it's been so depressed in price for so long that almost becomes a economic trend that is counter to any overall depression of the cryptocurrency space. We've been held down. We're no longer held down, and it'll be really interesting to see what happens not only with adoption and development, but also with the economic powers that and recognition of that for all these chains now that we are no longer under held down by a very heavy rock. The rock has been lifted. We can stand up and we can walk and run and thrive again. And I'm very excited about the coming months and years under this new reality.
OK， 我们最后想说两句。现在如果我们往前看未来的发展，会看到这个小组确实面临着很多的挑战，但是我们也会确实摒弃之前没有承诺好要做事情的一些压力，而更多的自己站出来去解决问题。之前面临的种种挑战，比如说之前有些没有负起自己责任的，没有做出承诺的表现，而我们并没有坐以待毙，并没有等，而是主动站出来去创造更多的功能。这个小组现在也确实让我们的世界更快速，可容性、兼容性更强，互操作性更强，也建立了交易的快速终结性等等这样新的功能和特性。对于个体的链来说，比如说 Telos 也建立了一些特殊的特性和功能，比如说 Telos 重点关注的是创造一个可用性非常强，甚至能够触达完全非区块链世界用户的这样一个可用性标准，这样一个功能。那我相信不管是 EOS 还是 WAX 还是 UX 都是在致力于这一方面，这种 mass production 这种 mass adoption 非常广泛的布局，广泛采用。现在 EOS 的币价或者其他的币价已经是保持低迷态度很长一段时间了，以至于它真正已经相当于成为了一个经济上发展的趋势。整个从经济发展的趋势来看，整个区块链世界或者是虚拟货币世界确实也快到了一个反弹的转折点。现在我们又有了这么多的选择，又有了这么多的能力，又有了这样的认知，我们应该认识到这些许许多多的加密货币区块链将要把压在身上沉重的大石头搬开，我们慢慢的可以从站起来到蹒跚学步，到小步快跑，到最后冲刺以及繁荣发展。所以我对未来的几个月或者几年还是非常看好的。 Thank you for sharing. We have faith in Antelope. Alright, 那再次感谢 Douglas Horn 的精彩分享。虽然过程是曲折的，但是结果和未来确实是让人振奋。未来 Antelope 的联盟也将持续的高效合作，优化改进 Antelope， 并且专注帮助 Antelope 建立更广泛的生态系统。那通过两位嘉宾的精彩分享，相信大家也对 Antelope 有了更加深层次的了解。感谢各位的持续收听。那接下来我们会进入激动人心的用户留言问答环节。在这之前的预热阶段，我们号召大家来关注、转发活动推文，并且留言您的问题。今晚我们的两位嘉宾将从这些问题中抽取6个问题做出回答，被抽中的幸运儿每人也会获得20 EOS 的奖励。现在这6个幸运问题已经新鲜出炉，让我们来看一下社区关心的话题都有哪些吧。Jumping into Q&A, we've collected questions from the community and have asked the speakers to choose 6. Now let's take a look. The first one, what pushed you to launch Antelope? What problem does Antelope aim to solve? 第一个问题来自 Jackie Prickett。什么是促使您推出 Antelope? Antelope 旨在解决哪些问题和痛点？Yves, do you want to take this one?
Sure, I'll go for it. That's a really good question. I did address some of it earlier in my response, so I'll just focus a little bit more again. So when we decided to launch, or what really drove us to push on Antelope is really threefold. One, it was to ensure the sustainability, the maintenance, and the growth of the code base. Because at the base, the code and the protocol, and essentially Antelope, what we're running off of, is the foundation of our workload. And so ensuring that sustainability and that growth was incredibly important. Ensuring that we have the frameworks around determining how we would do that and what we would do with that and how we would determine priorities and how we would then deploy capital to address those priorities, such as IBC and faster finality SDKs, for example. That is really what drove us to push Antelope.
这个问题非常好，其实我在之前的演讲也已经提过了，但是这里我要再重申几点。我们其实要决定发布 Antelope 有3个层次的考虑。第一个层次是代码库的可持续发展、日常维护和增长促进。因为代码库实际上是一切的根基，我们的代码、我们的协议都是基于 Antelope 这样一个基础性的东西。所以如果想要保持可持续性增长，这一点是非常重要的。我们一定要建立一个框架来告诉我们怎么做什么，设立优先级以及后续的资金支持，部署这些种种功能，包括 SDK、IBC 以及交易的快速终结性等等这些功能。Okay.
Now on top of this would not be possible if we didn't have an expansion of capable core protocol teams. What I mean by that is that for the last 4 years, essentially all EOS.io or Antelope now chains such as Telos, UX, Wax, and EOS were beholden to one core protocol team essentially led by Block 1. And we saw that one of the flaws in this particular framework is that everything is beholden on one team. And if that team no longer is incentivized or if the alignments are no longer overlapping with the needs of the community, with the needs of the developers, the various stakeholders, the investors, we're caught in a situation of essentially being hostage to that one team. Another reason why we pushed for the launch of Antelope and why Antelope makes me so bullish is that we now have multiple capable core developer protocol teams that can start taking on work to ensure that we have that growth in that code base so that we're no longer beholden or hostage to one team. We now expand that base, we now grow that base, and we ensure that we do so for the future to come.
那接下来我们其实 EOS.io 也好，还是 Telos、UX 以及 Wax 也都看到了 Block 1这个发展的轨迹。我们发现其实终结原因利益没有和社区以及利益关切者、开发者他们 的核心利益保持一致，社区以及开发者就会对这个团队抱有敌意心态。所以 Antelope 它之所以这么强劲，因为这一个团队可能它的利益和社区核心利益在有冲突的情况下，社区可能会对这一个团队抱有敌意心态。所以 Antelope 比较强势的其中一个原因，就是因为它是由多个有能力的核心开发者团队组成的，所以他们在共同维护这个核心代码库的这样一个核心代码库的开发和建设工作，就不会出现对这一个团队抱有敌意的情况，而是我们不断的在扩展，不断的在成长，不断的在一起构筑未来。
And lastly, what I just mentioned in terms of sustainability, maintenance, growth, expansion of capable core protocol teams, all of this would not be possible if we replicated the way of working of the past. And so we also needed to change the way we work to ensure that this was possible. And we do so by working with a certain level of transparency and openness, not only of the development, but of the processes by which the code evolves and new features are added. And so what we've done is we've started off doing RFPs, whereby we as a coalition come up with the priorities that we would like to see addressed. We then lay those out in terms of business requirements, technical requirements. We put that out there for the community of developers to review so that people are capable of coming in, bidding on work to take on particular tasks, which then involves the community in the process. It increases the amount of developers that are now working on EOS, and it compensates them for doing so. All of this process, all the transparent and open process ensures that in the future, not only will we be able to deploy significant and large operational feature performance increases to Antelope, but that the speed of which we deploy them will also increase. And so what we are doing is ensuring that not only we grow, but that we grow faster. We become even more performant, even faster than the rate at which we were doing before. And really what that means for the token holders is more innovation and just more eyes on the project.
最后想再说几句哈，就是不管是拓展性也好，成长和未来的规划，以及扩展有能力的核心团队也好，所有这些如果我们继续复制过去的模式，都是不可能行得通的。所以这就需要我们改变工作方式，来看到更多的可能性，保持透明和开放的态度，不仅仅是在开发部署过程中，也是在不断升级迭代代码和功能性不断提高，带来更多功能性上。所以我们现在在做的是什么呢？是在列出各项需求提案招标书，各项的 RFP， 由联盟来为优先级以及商业度以及在技术上面的需求等等都列清楚，这样各个社区和各个开发者可以对这些 RFP 进行审核，并且有看到感兴趣的 RFP 就可以进行工作，可以跳进去进行共筹共建。而Antelope 的组织也可以通过这样一个框架为投入共建的开发者提供持续不断的资金支持，这样的透明度和公开性就保证了在未来我们不仅仅会拥有强大的互操作性，也保证了这样一个迭代的速度是会越来越快的。所以我们未来不仅仅会不断成长，而且会更加快速的成长，在性能的提升方面也会是相较过去而言保持前所未有的速度。对于持币人来讲，希望大家可以持续关注我们的创新和我们的项目。谢谢。那接下来到下一个问题，下一个问题是来自顾朗，他的问题是 Antelope 和 EOS.io 的主要区别有哪些？ So the second question, what are the main differences between Antelope and EOS.io?
That's a great question. The biggest difference is that EOS.io is a closed down project now that has not released any significant new development in around 2 years. But Antelope is alive and it's ready to thrive. And it's got a big release, being updated to the EOS and Telos blockchains this month. The new features in this release, called Leap, greatly advance our technology with even more long-promised features like IBC, which is inter-blockchain communication, fast finality, soon ZK proofs, and now in development at last. It's important to note that Antelope brings in user input and real transparency to our development process that was never true under the prior regime. And this is a huge win for all of the users and developers in Antelope.
最大的区别是 EOS.io 是一个已经陷入停滞的项目，我们可以说它是一个关闭的项目，但是大约在过去2年的时间里 EOS.io 没有发布任何重要的新的发展，但是 Antelope 是一个十分活跃并且正在茁壮成长的项目，它的第一个大版本将在本月更新到 EOS 和 Telos， 这个被称为 Leap 的版本会包含很多新的功能，大大推进了我们的技术发展，甚至更多长期承诺的功能，比如说 IBC 交易的快速终结性，还有 ZK Proof 等等，这些功能现在终于已经在开发中了。但值得注意的是 Antelope 带来了用户的意见，以及我们开发过程中带来了真正的透明度给社区，这在 EOS.io 的开发中是不存在的，而且我相信 Antelope 也能持续的为用户和开发者带来新的价值。Okay, now moving to the third question. 第三个问题来自 Obray SG， 他的问题是，请问为什么要取名叫 Antelope？ 有什么特殊含义吗？ The question is, why is it called Antelope? Is there any special meanings? I'm always curious about this question as well.
And so maybe the answer won't be as exciting as the other ones, but essentially, we had a list of potential names that we were, I guess, contemplating, and Antelope really kind of rang a bell with everybody. Everybody grasped onto Antelope and what Antelope could be. Antelope, at first glance, when you hear it, they symbolize speed, finesse, agility, elegance, adaptability, survivability, resiliency. And these are all values that we as a coalition associated ourselves with. The other thing as well is that antelopes, they gather their strengths in herds. And really the coalition, that's what it's all about. And our communities in our respective EOS, Telos, UX, and WAX, it's all about the community and it's all about the strength of the herd. And so these are the main, I guess, special meanings or the meanings as to why Antelope in part were picked.
在最开始其实我们是有一个完整的名单的，我们就对照这个名单来思考未来到底选哪一个名字。所有人都一眼相中了 Antelope 这样一个名字，就是羚羊的意思。所有人都觉得这个 Antelope 的点子非常好，可以给我们带来很多的可能性。刚听到 Antelope 羚羊这个词，大家就会想起速度、技巧、敏捷、优雅、适应性、生存能力、弹性等等这样的特性。那所有这些特性都和我们想要塑造的价值，我们联盟想要塑造的价值是有一致性的。另外一点就是羚羊这种动物喜欢群居，那这也刚好对应了我们这样的联盟以及 UX, WAX, Telos 还有 EOS 对应的这些社区成群结队共创共建这样一个通过一群人让我们更加强大的内涵，所以这就是 Antelope 背后的寓意。
And I need to add that in many cultures, the antelopes or the antelope families, the Bovidae, also symbolize luck and fortune. And so that's just a little extra bonus.
另外在很多不同的文化里面，羚羊以及整个羚羊的这个科属这种动物也都和福报啊和幸福运气这样比较好的意象相关，所以选择 Antelope 也是一个比较好的选择。Okay, so the fourth question, when will Antelope launch and how is it related to EOS? 第4个问题是由冰墩墩666这位同学提出的，他的问题是 Antelope 什么时候上线，如何与 EOS 相关。I guess this question is for Douglas.
Yes, thank you. Before I answer that, I would like to add just 2 small points to why we chose Antelope as a brand. And one is that it was very important to us to convey to users that that our technology is designed to be deployed in many different ways. And because antelopes are very varied, various types of creatures that are able to be highly adaptable to different types of ecosystems and ecological niches and be very successful, we thought that reflected that well. And we also felt that Antelope will in time become a brand that stands with things like Amazon, Apple, Alphabet, the Google company, as a major technological player. And we wanted to convey those ideas as well to users, where we see Antelope standing as a technological leader, not just a blockchain coalition.
OK， 那在回答我们第4个问题之前 Douglas 也想先为上一个问题做一下他自己的补充2点。首先，为什么要选择 Antelope？ 很重要想向用户传递的一个消息就是 Antelope 的技术以及它部署技术的种种方式，就是跟羚羊一样，是羚羊这种生物是非常具有适应性的，它可以适应各种不同的环境，可以在各样的生态位保持成功态势，所以我们也希望 Antelope 达到这样的效果。那第2个原因呢，是因为Antelope 这个名字和这个品牌的名字和 Amazon、Apple、Alphabet 这些名字听起来是非常上口、非常类似，可以并驾齐驱的，所以我们的定位并不仅仅是一个区块链，而是一个技术公司或者是一个技术提供商。这也是我们想让用户通过 Antelope 的名字产生的联想。我们对自己的定位并不仅仅是一个区块链组织，而是一个技术科技提供者。Amazon, Apple, Alphabet, Antelope. Sounds very nice. Thank you.
I think so. In regards to your question about when will Antelope launch and how is it related to EOS and Telos, in one sense, Antelope has already launched because it's the new identity for all of these chains that were effectively abandoned by the previous company. The first actual software update is called Leap 3.1, and it has already completed several months of testing through 4 release candidates before we landed on the final release. So there's been much testing. The various chains are now testing deployments since some level of coordination among block producers, exchanges, and apps has to occur. As a protocol change, the software could fork off some BPs, block producers, if not handled well. So fortunately, we've done these protocol updates before, and we are practicing for it now. EOS has set a date of September 21st. Yves, correct me if I'm mistaken on that, for its switchover. And Telos plans to do its switchover in likely that same week. There's no point in all of us doing them exactly the same time. There's no race or anything, but we will follow closely behind, most likely in September as well. I asked a work group within Telos to lead this initiative for our blockchain, and it turns out in selecting the leaders for that it was mostly the block producers who are also planning to switch over on EOS, Jungle Network, Jungle Testnet, and others. So these things are moving very quickly so far.
从某种意义上来说 ，Antelope 已经推出了，我们可以将它视为所有曾经基于 EOS 构建的区块链的新身份。这些链就是之前被上一个公司抛弃，但是它现在拥有了一个新的身份，叫做 Antelope。Antelope 的第一个实际的软件更新会被称为 Leap 3.1，在它正式推出之前，已经经历了4个候选版本的迭代，并且完成了几个月的测试。各个链现在正在测试部署，因为区块链生产者、交易所以及应用程序之间必须进行某种程度的协作。作为一个协议变更，如果处理不好，软件可能会分叉掉一些 BP。但是幸运的是，我们之前已经做过这样子类似的协议更新，而我们现在也正在为它进行演练。EOS 的日程是会将更新日期定在9月21日。等一下，如果有不对，Yves还会更新。那 Telos 也会几乎在同一周进行升级，也不需要完全前脚后脚，但是大家离得应该不会太远，很接近，应该是在9月份的。我也就是 Douglas 会让一个领导工作组领导 Telos 的这一举措，但是在领导的过程中发现他们居然大多数都是区块链生产者，而且也已经在计划 EOS 和 Django 测试网等其他方面的升级了。Okay.
And so deploying this software gives us the first big performance boost that we've seen in 2 years. For example, I already have Leap 3.1 running on various servers at my company called GoodBlock, and it performs extremely well. I know that several other block producers are testing this out already, and we're very excited about these new features that are already starting to get our brains turning about how we can include them in new product development. Over the next 6 to 12 months, Telos is going to focus deeply on mass adoption with tools that are super easy as a traditional mobile app. And features in Leap 3.1 are critical to building that tool set. And each of the chains will be adapting those new possibilities in exciting ways that will benefit their users. So there is much to be excited about.
那部署这个软件也为我们带来了2年来首次性能方面的大幅度提升。我已经在我的公司 GoodBlock 这个公司的各种服务器上运行了 Leap 3.1，它性能非常好。我知道还有一些其他的 BP 也已经在测试了，还有一些新的功能，我们也已经把它列入了新产品的开发中。在接下来的6到12个月内 ，Telos 也会通过超级简单的工具，比如说一些传统应用程序，来重点推进 mass adoption 大规模采用这个方面的工作。而 Leap 3.1 里面的功能对于构建这样的工具集至关重要，所以对于每一个区块链来说都有新的可能性，非常令人值得期待，也会给用户带来很多的价值和好处，所以还是非常激动人心的啦。All right, now let's come to the fifth question. How will the members of EOSIO Plus Coalition help Antelope? Any plans for the future, Yves?
Sure, I'll try to keep this one a little bit shorter because we're already on the hour mark. The obvious ways that the coalition members help Antelope, I think, are pretty simple. There's the obvious financial and non-financial support. And so obviously with resources, with developers, with ideation, the governance, the determination of where to go. So all of that direction, that vision, the growth of where do we go next? And then how do we make that happen? That is non-trivial brain power that needs to go into this. And finally, that development and engineering that we're already seeing, whereby when we do decide that we lay on a priority or that we determine a priority of upgrade essentially for the core tech stack, that we have developers and engineers and that base is growing. And we are seeing that expansion of network really does start off with the core members.
其实这个问题之前也已经有触及，那我们时间也快到了，所以会简要回答。这个联盟给大家的给 Antelope 提供的支持非常简单，除了包括财政和非财政方面的支持，也就是一些资源啊、想法。治理未来方向的指引，未来愿景，我们要去哪儿，接下来怎么发展，以及接下来怎么发展等等，还包括一些发展和工程方面的问题，也就是设定各种优先级，决定各种优先级，我们是要怎么样发展这个核心技术，来带来更多的开发者和工程师，怎么样不断继续扩展网络，来带来更多合作。Okay, moving to the last question. What are the most important and immediate goals for Antelope for 2022 and the near future? 最后一个问题来自 Hassan， 也就是 Antelope 在2022年和不久的将来最重要的和最直接的目标是什么？ Let's give this question to Douglas.
The single most important immediate goal is to signal to the community that we are under new management and rapidly developing this protocol that is open, transparent, productive, and innovative, and that we will absolutely make Antelope a leading protocol for Web3 development. I think we're already making great strides there, and we'll remove all doubts once the Leap 3.1 release is activated on EOS, Telos, and other blockchains.
当前我们最重要的一个目标就是向社区释放一个积极信号，那就是我们正在接受新的管理模式，并正在迅速开发这个开放、透明、高效的创新协议。我们绝对会让 Antelope 成为 Web3 开发的领先协议。我们认为我们已经在这方面取得了很大的进展。一旦 Leap 3.1 版本在 EOS、Telos 和其他区块链上被激活，我们就也会消除所有的种种顾虑。当前我们最重要的一个目标是向社区释放一个信号，那就是我们正在接受新的管理模式，并正在迅速开发这个开放、透明、高效和创新的新协议。我们绝对会让 Antelope 成为 Web3 开发的领先协议。我们认为我们已经在这方面取得了很大的进展。一旦
Now, since that goal is well underway, the next most important, I think, is to recapture the commanding development lead that this protocol has had over competing protocols for 3 or 4 years ago. That gap narrowed over the past 2 years due to infrequent releases. But with the work that the Antelope Coalition has created in Leap 3.1, and also the new API, IBC, fast finality, and SDK initiatives that we've already funded, you will see an absolute explosion in new tools. For my work with Telos, I see how this can unlock the kind of ease of use that will make blockchain finally go mainstream. This is a robust and diverse tool set, so EOS, Telos, Wax, and UX will all be creating their own specializations on these tools. In many ways, the chains will become more differentiated as they use these new tools to fulfill their visions.
由于这个目标目前正在顺利进行，我认为下一个最重要的目标是重新夺回我们的协议，对于所有竞争协议的绝对开发领先优势。就像3-4年前那样，这个差距其实在过去2年缩小了，因为我们不断在开发新的内容。但随着 Antelope 联盟在 Leap 3.1 上面所做出的努力，以及我们已经资助的新 API、IBC， 还有更快的交易终结性和 SDK 计划，您将看到更新的更具有实用性的工具呈现绝对的爆炸式的增长。对于我在 Telos 的工作，我看我们的协议会不断的去释放可用性、便捷性，使得区块链最终成为主流。这将是一个非常强大并且非常多样化的工具集，所以 EOS、Telos、Wax 和 UX 都会在这个工具的基础上创造自己在各个专业领域更多的价值。在许多方面，他们也会使用新的工具来实现他们的愿景，让这些链变得更加差异化和多样性。Okay.
And third, while we will be building tools to differentiate the blockchains, we will also be building out a multi-chain ecosystem where we benefit our users by allowing them to freely interact across the chains with little to no friction. Our chains are distinct and they compete which drives performance and innovation, but we also collaborate and build tools for our fast-growing user base. So my goal is to see us maximize how we both compete to be the best individual chains we can be and cooperate to be the best blockchain protocol in existence. Some of this requires that we share this vision to people that still have the old mindset where there's only one cutthroat competition among chains, not where we gain enormous leverage as an aligned coalition. But I think that people are quickly coming around and seeing the benefits through conversations like this with the audience and with the users. So I'm very pleased to be able to be here and speak to people about this. So thank you for this opportunity.
第三，我们在构建工具以及明确各条链之间的差异化和多样性的同时，我们也将建立一个多链的生态系统，让我们的用户在几乎没有摩擦的情况下，在各链之间自由互动，从而使他们获得收益。基于我们协议构建的区块链是有区别的，而且是竞争很激烈的，这也就推动了性能和创新。但我们也彼此协作，会建立种种实用的工具来促进更好的成长，让我们用户群快速增长。因此，我们的目标是看到我们最大限度的利用竞争，让我们成为现有的最佳区块链协议。这需要我们向那些仍属于旧观念中的人分享这样一个愿景，打破链与链之间只有竞争这一成就。那最后也想说，我们能有今天这样一个大家一起沟通讨论，一起来探索未来这样一个活动，其实还是非常有益的，也非常高兴今天能和大家一起坐在这里来聊一聊我们 Antelope 背后的故事以及它未来的愿景。All right, look forward to that future. Thank you for all your answers. We talked about the meaning of Antelope, the thoughts behind it, the new functions and features. I guess that will conclude tonight's event. Now I'm going to wrap up with a few words. 感谢大家的积极参与，也感谢各位嘉宾的精彩解答。好了，精彩的分享总会让人觉得时间过得飞快，不知不觉本次活动已经接近尾声啦。感谢二位嘉宾的精彩发言，也感谢各位的积极参与，感谢本次活动的合作媒体对我们的大力支持。作为社区共识的结果， Antelope 的诞生淋漓尽致地体现了目前 EOS 生态发展和发展愿景的一致性。我们有一致的目标和一致的愿景，也为整个行业展现了如何将生态资源集中在一起来发挥作用，集中力量办大事的范式。未来 EOS 生态将作为一个整体，朝着独立发展、自主决策的方向昂首迈进。所有的一切仅仅是一个开始哦，未来的旅程将更加有意义。关于 EOS 的未来，我们一起拭目以待。好了，本期的 Antelope 品牌重塑中文社区发布会到此已经全部结束了，我们相约下一场 Twitter Space 的活动，我们不见不散，拜拜。Thanks for coming. See you until the next event. Thanks, Yves.
Thank you very, very much, Daisy.
Thank you.
Thank you,
very
Douglas.
much. Thank you, Yves. Thank you, everybody in the audience. GG. I appreciate being here. Thank you,
Thank
Daisy.
you, everybody.